Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Weiser, and we're going to talk today about some famous monasteries that also had um, projects for brewing beer. I want to start off with a question. If any of you guys are familiar with monasteries or monks and their lifestyles, what about that life would lead to brewing good or great beer? Um, Most of the time in the Middle Ages, these were some of the most educated people around, were the monks living in monasteries, and you'll see as I go through the presentation that they had a very strong work ethic and a very strict day consisting of a lot of prayer and a lot of work. So we'll get started with some background on monastic brewing. A lot of these monks are really innovators in the brewing and the beer industry. They were the first people to record using and growing different varieties of hops, first for medicine, and then afterward they found that they could be used in brewing. They were some of the first people to really use sanitation or cleaning procedures to make their breweries more sanitary and make the product a lot better. Um, Monks often use beer as a meal substitute, so this allows for long periods of fasting, especially during the Lenten season, which is a 40-day season of preparation before Easter, where a lot of monks would fast. So they had to brew really nutritious, really great beer to be able to sustain themselves through that fast. So the establishment of Franciscan and Dominican orders also shrinks the monastic brewing culture around the 1200s, as these became options for people that wanted to join religious life that wasn't being cloistered up in a monastery. The Protestant movements, secularism, and the Enlightenment also had a very drastic impact on breweries, with a lot of them being shut down by kings and by some governments, especially in the French Revolution. So we see a dramatic drop from about 600 monasteries in the Middle Ages down to 30 by 1815, and then we're up back to about 60 monastic breweries worldwide. And there's also a commercial effect too, as patrons of breweries um, and royals that once supported monastic breweries by giving them Groot right or giving them financial support now see a commercial opportunity for a secular brewery to make a lot of money off of. They stop donating or giving as much money to these monastic breweries, and you can see some decline throughout the 1700s and the 1800s because of that reason as well. World War I and World War II also had a very dramatic impact on monastic brewing. A lot of these monasteries ended up being destroyed through World War I and World War II and are just now being rebuilt. So there was kind of a pause in monastic brewing and a lot of kind of a loss of practice and a loss of culture, where some of these recipes were lost to time. More monasteries brew for in-house use than commercialization. Again, it's used as nutrition during periods of fasting, so a lot of monasteries will just brew for themselves. There's also this motto of ora et labora, which was spewed by Saint Benedict, who was kind of the leader and the founder of the Benedictine monasteries. This translates to prayer and work, so you can get an idea of the life that a lot of these monks lived. It was a pretty intense practice where the only things that a monk's life should consist of are praying and hard manual labor. And a lot of that manual labor comes from either being in the fields or brewing. This leads to really precise craftsmanship, and it can lead to brewing great beer. So the first monastery that I want to take a chance to talk about is Monte Cassino. This is an abbey in Lazio, Italy. This was founded by Saint Benedict himself in 529 AD. This is where his idea of ora et labora, and hard labor in a brewery and field for 5+ hours a day really came into fruition. This was seen as the beer was brewed at as a necessary nourishment. Each monk was actually given about a keg a week of beer, which seems very indulgent in our culture, but because this was really used as nourishment, there wasn't a whole lot of drunkenness um, or indulgence in that. Saint Benedict also forbade drunkenness at the abbey, and it was harshly punished. Even spilling beer would lead to a night of silence, standing still throughout the whole night and not being able to sleep. This abbey also influenced heavily Charlemagne's brewing estates. So he came to visit this abbey at some point and took a copy of Benedict's rules and his handbook. So he then implemented some standards between brewing practices and sanitation practices throughout his estates, and then tried to get other monasteries to follow the lead of Monte Cassino. This abbey was destroyed completely in World War II in the Battle of Monte Cassino, after having a very rich brewing history and tradition that lasted through the Middle Ages with wide European distribution of their brewing, but was destroyed in World War II and has now just recently been rebuilt by a private partnership with the Abbey in 2018. So only recently are they starting to brew these monastic beers again, and now they have, in the bottom right corner there's Monte Cassino La Birra di Abbazia, which is a 5% ABV ale that is being sold internationally now. Moving on to Weihenstephan in Bavaria. This is a former German Trappist monastery founded by Saint Corbinian in 725. So this is one of the first places that hops are cultivated, and there's noted for growing hops as early as 768 for medicine, and it's theorized that these were also used in the monks' own house beers that they would drink at their own tables. They obtained a commercial brewing license in 1040 and began to brew beer from that point on. The monastery was secularized by the Bavarian government in 1803, but the brewery was still operated as a commercial and educational setting, even as a university now. So while you can buy beer from this place, you can also go and learn how to brew beer and get an upper level degree in the art of brewing and industrial engineering and things like that. This is considered the oldest run brewery. So it has been in continuous use from 1040 all the way to the present, which is the most notable thing about this brewery. Their most famous beer is this Weiss beer with the label down in the corner. It's a light wheat beer that is produced and sold and is very popular today. The next abbey that we have is Notre Dame de Scarmont, which is also known as Caimé. This is a Belgian Trappist brewery that was founded in 1850, with the brewery opening soon after that in 1862. They quickly start distribution of two beers, Bière Forte and Bière Goudronné. This was destroyed during World War II when the Germans took their copper kettles that were used in brewing for war materials and was reconstructed with help from the Catholic University Leuven in 1948. So now they sell 4 bottle-conditioned, pretty worldwide acclaimed beers. There's Caimé Red, which is a double dark ale, Caimé Triple, which is a triple beer, which is more mellow and golden in color, Caimé Blue, which is a very dark ale with a very strong aroma, and Caimé Doré, which is a pale ale, which is pretty golden and spicy. Caimé Gold would be another name for it, and it was also considered to be more of the table beer, and this is produced worldwide now, or distributed and sold worldwide, still produced at the Abbey in Caimé. Next we have the brewery at Our Lady of the Sacred Heart in Westmalle. This is another Belgian Trappist abbey founded in 1836, and the brewery there was always in production, but only for the abbey. They started selling their commercial brew in 1856. There's a lot of uniqueness at this brewery. So there's extremely hard water in this location in Westmaw, which we've learned before can very drastically affect the flavor of some beers. They also have a proprietary yeast blend that they've been using for a number of years. This leads to a very spicy and floral beer. There's also the use of candy sugar, which in Belgium is this fully fermentable sugar syrup that's often toasted. So that can lead to a really smooth beer that is far smoother than its ABV would present itself, and also having these really unique toffee and toasted sugar and toasted caramel notes in the beer. Currently, they brew an extra, double, and triple beer. The extra would be what the monks would drink at their tables. A double would be a darker ale, and a triple would be a very, very strong Belgian ale. Our last abbey that we'll be talking about today is St. Sixtus in West-Vleteren. Their licensure was obtained to sell commercial beer in 1839. This is a Belgian Trappist brewery that has some of the most coveted and widely acclaimed beers in the world. They sell the 6, 8, and 12, which is named based on what about their ABV is. The 6 is a blonde ale that would be, again, drank at a table. Their 8 would be a dark ale, and their 12 would be this very strong ale with lots of rum and fruity notes, which is considered one of the most coveted beers actually in the world. They have a very unique distribution and sale procedure. They only brew once a week, and you can only make a reservation to pick up their beer once a month. They have this telephone reservation lottery system where you call in, and if you're lucky that month, you get the chance to pick up a case of beer for relatively cheap. They track your license plate number. They make sure that you have the correct license plate coming through their drive-in, and if you try to reserve this beer more than once a month, you immediately get dropped from the phone call to try to reserve that beer. So they have a very strict distribution process. And this is what makes their beer highly coveted, because it is of high quality and it's extremely hard to get. The monks even really forbid reselling their beer, but this is widely ignored. Once enthusiasts get it, they really like to sell it on the open market. So I have some references here, but I wanted to continue to talk. If you want an experience of exploring monastic brewing in Indiana, there's a brewery at a women's convent in Ferdinand, Indiana, which is very south. It's in Dubois County on the southern tip of the state. So this is a private monastic partnership where a few lay Catholics are brewing beer in conjunction with some of the women at this monastery. So if you want to get a chance to try some monastic beers or some abbey beers, there's a good place to go and look. So then I have some reflection and conclusion questions for you as well. I wanted to ask who started the monastic brewing tradition, and what sort of events, whether that be wars or different political changes, interrupted a lot of monastic breweries. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.